So now we are doing the second part of this canto, describing the deathless flame. What we had earlier was the deathless rose. Now with the deathless flame. This is the spiritual hierarchy of the mental planes. Spiritual hierarchy of the mental planes. One starting from within and climbing up, supraliminal, one above the other, from the inner, joining the spiritual, and that is what I would call as the deathless rose. The other one is the spiritual hierarchy of planes, the deathless flame. So the inner hierarchy of mental planes and the spiritual hierarchy of mental planes, this and this, they are joining together and then expressing themselves into the beyond. So actually, as I told you last time, one has to really systematically figure out and record the various grades of mental planes he has described. There are at least a dozen of them in great detail with every kind of a description available there, and yet one feels that as if he is kind of hurrying through. The descriptions are so short as if he is kind of hurrying through, you see. But this is for the first time such detailed description is available in any spiritual literature about the mental planes, mental consciousness, mental levels of our existence. So you have got the rational mind, the mind of reason. Above that starts slowly the spiritual mind, and then you reach the topmost, the overmind, where the ideal is most prevalent, the overmind. Then of course beyond the overmind is the supramental plane. So that is the complete hierarchy of the mental planes itself. It's a vast hierarchy, and we are supposed to climb all that, you see, slowly, one by one, you see. On the other side of the eternal stair, they're permanently there. They have been built into the scheme of things already. Eternal stairs, they have been there all along. Now, when they were built, how they were built, that process of involution has not been really described fully. See, one doesn't know how it has happened. To a certain extent, you have some idea of it in Jacob's ladder. In the Genesis, Jacob's ladder, the climbing of steps and all that thing. So there is a kind of a correspondence or a hierarchy of planes in the biblical description. In the Puranas, there is a very elaborate description of various types of beings. Gandharvas, all those beings are there described in the Puranas. So they also belong to the mental categories there, you see. So that way you have some kind of inkling of those suprarational planes and suprarational beings in the earlier literature. I don't think that way we have such a description in the Greek knowledge, Greek spiritual knowledge. It doesn't have. Hesiod has got, but it doesn't describe this kind of a thing at all. For the Greek mind, the ideal, the best is Plato's idea. That is the best thing. And yet that is not the real idea. It is pure reason, he calls it pure reason, ideal. But then that is not still the pure reason at all, you see. So that way, Greek experience does not really know about these levels of mental planes climbing up like that, you see. Eternal stairs, the mighty kingdoms of the deathless flame aspired to reach the beings absolutes, beings of Satchidananda, his absolutes. They are aspiring. does not mean that they have reached it or they will reach it. But their aspiration is there, their urge is there, their entire drive is towards the absolute, the being's absolute, you see. So that is what gives them the character of a spiritual existence. Spiritual existence. They are spiritual beings that way. Out of the sorrow and darkness of the world, out of the depths of life and thought are tuned. That is a great commentary upon our existence. Very sorrowful commentary, very sad commentary that we are living in a world of sorrow and darkness. We are living in life and thought which are tuned. They don't have life being at all, you see. So out of this existence, these people, these kingdoms are aspiring toward the Supreme Being's absolute. Lonely mounts up to heaven the deathless flame. The aspiring flame. Actually, you consider thought as something which is a being. Who is a being? Thought is a being, in fact. He is a person, he is not an abstraction. He is a being, in fact. Lonely mounts up to heaven the deathless flame. So, on the left hand side are the kingdoms of the deathless rose. On the right hand side are the kingdoms of the deathless flame. So, we are climbing up the staircase now and looking at things on the right side of the staircase. So, you have got here the hierarchy of deathless rose, the hierarchy of deathless flame, climbing up like that. Lonely mounts up to heaven the deathless flame. There is nobody accompanying you, see. Thought alone. In a vague nature's hallowed secrecies, it burns forever on the altar mind. Where does this fire burn? Where does this flame burn? This flame burns on the altar mind. Mind is the altar. Mind is the altar on which this flame is burning and rising up. The mental being, the mental Purusha, that is the altar, that is the base on which this flame is rising into spiritual domains, climbing up to the spiritual worlds, you see. In vague nature's hallowed secrecies, so that is kind of concealed from us. We don't know about that thing. Nature has concealed that part. It is there with us. So, mind is the platform on which this hierarchy, the flame is burning and climbing up like that. It burns forever on the altar mind. Its priests, the souls of dedicated gods. So, this altar, the sacrifice is going on, yajna is going on, and the fire is burning on this altar. Who are the priests? Dedicated gods, who are committed to the mental things. Who are committed to mental things. Committed souls of dedicated gods. Humanity is house of sacrifice. That is yajna. That is yajna. Sacrifice. Humanity means on top of humanity, you have got this altar fire, the platform is there, the bricks are laid there, and the fire is burning up, climbing up. And that is all happening in the sacred, in the halo of nature's secrecy. Nature has kept all the things secret from us completely. In a veiled nature's hallowed secrecy, it burns forever on the altar mind. So it is always there. It never gets quenched. That yajna, sacrifice, is constantly going on. Constantly going on. And when there is the fire sacrifice, there had to be priests, vikars, and these vikars had to take care of them, you see. It's free, the souls of dedicated God, they are committed to this mental film. Our once candle never can is flaming, see, it's of the deathless rose, of the deathless flame. It's of the deathless flame, is once candle, once that lighted, that fire is kindled, the sacrifice is kindled, then it keeps on burning all the way. In other words, when your mind opens out to the spiritual possibility of the mind, then you are a different person altogether. Then you are taken up like that, you see. Otherwise, you remain always in the lower realm, in the triplicity of the dwarfish mind, and rash intelligence and all those things which are described earlier, you remain there. But once your mind opens out that fire is kindled, how that fire is to be kindled, that is a separate thing altogether. Can it happen to me or to you? There has to be something from within the person. There has to be some kind of an urge, a quest, a thirst for outgrowing yourself. It cannot be given to you. It has to come from within yourself, you see, by some kind of a pursuit, some kind of a commitment, some kind of engagement with that. Then only it can come and happen, you see. And once that happens, then you are really climbing up. You started climbing up, you see. Humanity is house of sacrifice. The entire humanity is not yet open. But if somebody in the humanity opens out, then he is a spiritual person. His mind, intuition opens out, inspiration comes, revelation comes. Those things start happening then to him. Once it is kindled, you see, the flame, you see. Once kindled. So you have got this house of sacrifice, tapas yajna. Tapas yajna. You are doing kind of tapasya yajna. It is going on there. And it is by tapas yajna, then you are able to bring out more and more aspects of the mental being into picture, you see. Tapas yatnam. Once kindled, never can its flaming cease. It's a very beautiful line. Once kindled. First put is a spondy. Kindle never can its flaming cease. So you have got spondy, you have got an AM, you have got a pyrrhic, AM, AM. These are the 5 feet of the line, you see. Once kindled, never can its flaming cease. And you know the beauty of this line, the L alliteration, kindled, flaming, very powerful, very sweet alliteration of the line. And of course, N, once kindled, never can. See, the N value and L alliteration is very, very charming here. N and L alliterations are very beautiful here. See, once kindled, never can its flaming cease. And that inversion, you have got the verb first and then other things. See, once kindled, very powerful. A fire along the mystic paths of earth, along the mystic paths of earth, because there is yajna going on, the sacrifice is going on. A fire, I am, along, I am, the mystic paths of earth, all feet are I am. A fire along the mystic paths of earth, it rises through the mortal's hemisphere. It rises through pyrrhic, the mortal's hemisphere. Till borne by runners of the day and dusk, it enters the occult eternal light. That fire is entering the occult eternal light and clambers, whitening to the invisible throne. It is trying to climb up, slowly, struggling to climb up to the invisible throne of the being. Throne of whom? Of that being. The throne of that being. It is clambering to that thing. Now, this is a very powerful description, extremely powerful description. A fire along the mystic paths of earth. Obviously, it is all mysticism. The poetry itself is mystic. The whole sentence is mystically charged. The poetry of the sentence is absolutely mystic. You see, very powerful spiritual atmosphere is present in these lines. These lines themselves create a kind of a spiritual atmosphere. A fire along the mystic paths of earth, it rises to the mortal hemisphere, tail-borne with the runners of the day and dawn. It enters the occult eternal light and clambers widening to the invisible throne. So if you read these things all together like that, you see the power of this line, you see. The whole group can read the whole line, sentence, very powerful sentence that we see. Now, there are many things in this line. Mystic paths of the earth. You are already now entering into the hidden secret paths or the spiritual path. That's why it's mystic path. Now, it is the spiritual aspect which is kept behind mysticism, and it is that which rises to the mortal's hemisphere. He has already talked of humanity, the mortal hemisphere. From there, now that path is rising up from the mortal sphere up there, till born by runners of the day and dusk. This is too difficult a sentence, too difficult a line. Born by runners of the day and dusk. I can understand what is meant by day and dusk. Day is of course the supramental light, and dusk I would call it as the overmind. It is there that the ignorance begins. The transition from light to darkness, begins with overmind. That is the dusk. So you are entering from knowledge into ignorance. Knowledge, day, into ignorance, that is dusk. And the transition phase is the overmind, you see. So I will rather say day is the supermind and dusk is the overmind. So till these things are rising, born by runners. But who are these runners? That is more important to know, you see. Of course, the glorious thoughts. The description is about the thought, the being, the kingdoms of the thought. So they are the runners of day and dusk. They are climbing up from lower, up, and now from overmind they are trying to go to supermind, you see, climbing up. In fact, it enters the occult eternal light. Occult eternal light, that is supramental light. And climbers whitening the invisible throne, the throne of the being, it tries to climb up this thing. These powers of mind are trying to climb up very with difficulty. Let us read something about these runners of day and night. Day, as I said, is of course supermind, and thus I am equating to overmind, from where the ignorance begins down below, see. Now these are the beings and powers who run between overmind and supermind. Now, but still, who are these runners? In the Rigveda, in fact, it is there the Rigveda comes to our help. The description of the Agni is so rich in Rigveda, it describes all the aspects of Agni. And the 7 Angirasas of the Rigveda, 7 rishis of Rigveda, Angirasas, they are the runners of day and dusk. 7 Angirasas are the runners of day and dusk. Angirasas, the beings of flame and power, they are the Angirasas, 7 Angirasas. They are called Sapta Vipraha. Sapta means 7. Vipra, people who know, knowledgeable people who understand things. So these Angirasas are Sapta Vipra, 7 knowledgeable beings, Sapta Vipra. They are the runners between dusk and day. From our creation, climbing up to the supramental light and force, they are the ones who are going back and forth. Sapta Vipra. Vipra means a person who is learned, who is knowledgeable, that we say. Sapta Vipra. 7 Angirasas of this deathless flame. The flame, Angirasas are described in the Rigveda as the pilgrims of light. Angirasas are described as the pilgrims of light. So these are the people now who are the pilgrims, the Angirasas, the 7 fires, 7 flames. They are the, you see, Angirasas are both human and divine. Angirasas are both human and divine. So these are the ones who are now climbing up the staircase. Angirasas, pilgrims of the light. These divine luminous sages, they are still sages, you see. Angirasas are at once divine and human seers. That is what we have in the Rigvedic description. Angirisas are at once divine and human seers. Dawn, for instance, dawn is described, Usha, dawn is described as goddess human in mortals. Dawn is described in the Rigveda as goddess human. She has come to human, but she is still a goddess, divine goddess. She has come to human, yet divine, you see. Same way, Angirisas are human as well as divine, partly, you see. That is that called, and it is these are the runners who are now climbing up from dusk to the day. They are the pilgrims of knowledge, you see. Now, it enters the occult eternal light. So all the way up to the supramental light, they are going eternal light. Brahaspati, the being of knowledge, the Rigvedic being of knowledge, who has got all the knowledge, he is described as one with 7 red thinkers. He is described as one with 7 rays. He is a thinker with 7 rays. Brahaspati is described as a thinker with 7 rays. Rays of mental understanding, of spiritual understanding, you see. Rays of knowledge. So Brahaspati is already, so these are the 7 kind of runners now. 7 rays, they are the runners, all of them. And they are linking up now this to the upper one like that, you see. Brahaspati is a 7-rayed thinker. Sapta Rashmi, the Rigvedic phrase is Sapta, 7. Rashmi, Ray is Rashmi. Sapta Rashmi. So, the Brahaspati, or what we normally call as Brahma, he has got 7 rays, 7 Rashmi, or 7 ways of thinking. And they are the modes of mental understanding or spiritual things. The mystic path, as he says, mystic path of the earth. That is what we are going to say, mental thing. Brahaspati is a 7-rayed thinker, Saptarshmi. And then there is one very beautiful footnote in Sri Aurobindo's description of this 7-rayed, 7-headed Brahma, Brahaspati. As you got 7 heads, 7 minds, 7 ways of looking at things, you see. There is a small footnote there, and the footnote says, the body of man is the ear. Y-E-A-R, ear. 1 ear constitutes the body of man. 1 ear. You are made of 1 ear. Means 1 ear means you are possessing in you all the aspects of season, all the periodicities of time, the cycles, the movement, everything is present in 1 ear. So everything is embodied in your physical body, you see. You are going through all the transitions of time in the physical itself. Now this is a very significant footnote by Sri Aurobindo, that body is the ear of man. Ear is the body of man. Ear is the body of man. Now, just connect this thing. Ear is the body of man. Satyavan, after the marriage with Savitri, is given 1 year to live. He is given 1 year to live with Savitri after meeting Savitri. 1 year. Narad comes and says, this day returning, 1 year afterwards, he must die. In words, he must abandon his body. He must abandon his body. The ear is going away, it means that he is abandoning his body, the physical body. It is that abandoning of the physical body which will bring to him immortality, the powers of the transcendental existence will enter into him at the end of the cycle of 1 year. The body is now completely changed. Why not tomorrow? Why not after 6 months? Why the story tells you that they will live together for 1 year, because they had to go together to the entire cycle of seasons and time. And it is there Savitri will do the yoga tapasya and bring down the power in her to prevent him disappearing completely. His death is not going to be an ordinary mortal death in that case. It will be an immortal death. Here, all the past which was hanging around him until now, the entire past which was clinging to him, that past is completely dissolved. That past is completely dissolved. That is 1 year. Body, 1 year is the body of man. That is what it means. Now, see, so that way the spiritual literature is very rich. The Veda speaks of body and year. Savitri's story speaks of 1 year for them. Here also you have got the same thing. It is a flame now which is giving rise to all the kind of a thing. So there is a sort of a consistency in the entire description of these phases of existence. You see. Consistency is there throughout, you see. Till born by runners of the day, and so these are the Saptarshi, Sapta Angirasas who are running between the day and the dusk and day, you see. Now, actually, I got one more note here. Kingdoms of deathless rose climbing up. What are those kingdoms? The 6 kingdoms which are described, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kingdoms which are described are at the base is called Swara. At the base is called Swara. Then comes Satya. Then comes Tapas. Then comes Jana. Then comes Mayasa. The topmost is Mayasa. Swara, that is heaven, Swarga, you can say, the mental heaven. Heaven of mind, Swara. Swara, the lowest is Swara. Above that is Satya Loka, what we call Satya, the world of truth. Then is the world of consciousness energy, Tapas. So you have got Swara, you have got Satya, you have got then Tapas, then you have got Jana, multiplication, and then you got Mayasa. Mayasa is pure Ananda. Mayasa is pure Ananda. So starting from Swara all the way up to Mayasa is the hierarchy of planes which are present in the day. In the day. This is the hierarchy of planes. And these people, these Angirasas, these rishis, these rays are climbing up now, are aspiring to climb up those things. Human as well as divine, simultaneously, both. They are both simultaneously seen. A fire along the mystic path of the earth of earth. A fire along the mystic path of earth. It rises to the mortal hemisphere. Mortal hemisphere, the lower hemisphere. Till born by runners of the day and dawn. It enters the occult eternal light, and clambers whitening to the invisible throne. What a powerful description this is. Absolutely powerful. Very powerful description. Its worlds are that flame. Its worlds are steps of an ascending force. Now here describe the worlds of the spiritual fire. What are these worlds? They are the steps of an ascending force, Shakti, who is climbing up, force. So the flame, the yajna is going on. What is the yajna doing? Yajna is carrying that power up like that, you see. That flame is carrying that power up like that. That is the power of yajna, power of tapasya, which is going on, you see. Its worlds are steps. All those 7, 6, 5 words which I have described here. Its worlds are steps of an ascending force. A dream of giant contours, Titan line. A dream of giant contours, Titan line. A dream I am of giant, I am Turkan, I am to Titan. All 5 are I ams in this line. A dream of giant contours, Titan line, homes of unfallen and illumined might, unfallen and illumined might. The force which is there, it is through that, that illumined might which is there, it is through that the ascending force is climbing up because of this yajna, because of this sacrifice. The fire sacrifice which is there, what is that fire sacrifice doing? The Shakti which is there, the Shakti is being carried up, lifted up to the illumined might, the divine Shakti herself. Heavens of unchanging good, pure and unborn. They are not unborn, they are not entered into our creation. They are not entered into our creation. Unchanging good, pure and unborn, high of the grandeur of truth's ageless ray. So there is no age at all for this ride, for this Rashmi. It goes on like that. High to the grandeur of truth's unseen ray. As in a simple sky, they start to view and call our souls to a vaster air. So that is the purpose of the sacrifice. That is the purpose of yajna. That they are calling our souls to the vaster, purer, higher air, to a different atmosphere, spiritual world. They are climbing up to a different spiritual world altogether. Call our souls. So these are the flame, runners of the flame, who are really carrying us to our soul into a vaster. On their summits, they bear up the sleepless flame, dreaming of a mysterious beyond. On their summits of their worlds, its worlds are steps. There stands for worlds. On the summits of these worlds, they bear up the sleepless flame. That Agni never sleeps there. Of course, the question of dream doesn't arise for it. It is always awake, burning there ever. On their pure gold orange light, that sleepless flame is a flame of gold and orange light. It's a gold and orange fire which is constantly burning up there. It doesn't have sleep. Dreaming a mysterious beyond, still thinking of beyond, transcendent to the path of fate and time. So it doesn't bother about fate and time. Fate and time, the way in which things happen in the cosmic working, that is the fate. The cosmic, the individual, the transcendental forces coming together, they are molding all our events and sequences of existence. That is fate. That is fate. Fate is not only governed by my will, it is also governed by cosmic forces, it is also governed by the transcendent will. All they together, they constitute fate, and the movements of time are carrying forward. Transcendent to the paths of fate and time, they point above themselves with index peak. This world, with index peaks, like that, they show up there. There, how index, you take a certain object and then you say, look at that, and then you show that star like that. That's the index, you say. What is called paroksha. Paroksha. In Sanskrit, the word is paroksha. You are showing pratyaropa. You are imposing something on something to point out something else. You see that crow, you look at that crow, and then look beyond that, and you say star there. You say star. That is pratyaropa. It's a branch. So that is the index figure. That is the index peaks. So these are the peaks, and beyond that, then you are able to see the beyond as you see. In fact, that is exactly what happened in the case of Sri Aurobindo when he was in Alipur jail. In the early months of his being there in the jail, the spirit of Vivekananda used to visit him for 2 weeks. For a fortnight, he was constantly visiting the spirit of Vivekananda. And it is there, he used to say, look up there, that star. He is showing that pen with the index finger, that star, that is supramental light. That is supramental force. He was showing that star, index, you see. So that is the first time he got the knowledge about the supramental star there in the day, pointed by Vivekananda up there. See. They point about themselves with index finger through a pale sapphire ether of God mind. So through the God mind sapphire ether pale, they are pointing out towards the higher peaks, you see, towards some gold infinite apocalypse. So that is the way now that index is pointing out, you see. A thunder rolling with the hills of God, tireless Savior is a tremendous voice, exceeding us to exceed ourselves, they call, and bid us rise incessantly above. They are insisting that come on, go up, climb up, incessantly above, climb up. There are ladders and ladders, you have to climb up like that. A thunder rolling mid the hills of God. What a line, you see. A thunder rolling mid the hills of God. Perfect iambic line. Perfect poetry also. This line is different than the other line. A thunder rolling mid the hills of God. The alliteration and all those things are there. D, N, hills of God. Tireless Savior is a tremendous voice. There is a difference between the quality of these two lines. When you read a thunder rolling with the hills of God, it has a different kind of an atmosphere, rhythm, movement, sound than tireless Savior is a tremendous voice. You see, it doesn't have that kind of. There is a difference. You can see the sound value exceeding us, to exceed ourselves, they call. Now, this is a rhetorical line. Exceeding us to exceed ourselves. That is the rhetorical element in poetry. In this line, a thunder rolling with the hills of God, there is no rhetoric at all. It is pure lyrical poetry, simply rising up. It is inspiration. Whereas exceeding us to exceed ourselves, there is the rhetorical element in that. And bid us rise incessantly above, up, go, climb up in that. A thunder rolling with the hills of God, tireless, severe, the tremendous voice. They are calling us. There are those hills of God, exceeding us to exceed ourselves. Far from our eager reach, those summits live. Too lofty for mortal strength and high, hardly in a dire ecstasy of toil, climbed by the Spirit's naked athlete will. So that is our littleness. Far from our eager reach, we are eager to it, but we cannot really climb up to that kind. We are so small people, so pygmy, we cannot really climb up to all the same. Far from our eager reach, those summits live. Too lofty for a mortal strength. So what kind of strength we have got? Our mortal strength is so feeble, so weak, so little, it cannot really achieve anything. Hardly in a dire ecstasy of toil, austere, intolerant, they claim from us efforts too lasting for mortal nerve. Are we capable of putting those efforts? They claim they want us to do that thing. We had to do that kind of a sacrifice. We had to do that kind of a yajna. We had to do that kind of a sadhana. We had to do that kind of a tapasya. Then only things can happening. When you do that tapasya, austere, intolerant, they claim from us efforts too lasting for a mortal nerve. Our hearts cannot cleave to, nor our flesh support. Cleave to, cannot grasp, cannot hold. Our heart cannot grasp. They are so long. So our tapasya is inadequate for that thing to happen. Nor our flesh support. Our flesh is too weak for that thing, you see. Only the eternal strength in us can dare. Well, luckily, that eternal strength is there within us. We have not invoked the strength within us. We have not accessed ourselves to the strength which is present within us. The soul has all the strength to link you directly with that. The spirit within you has the strength to make you that thing. Only the eternal strength in us can dare to attain the immense adventure of that climb and the sacrifice of all we cherish here. So all that we cherish here, we value very dearly, to which we are clung, to which we are attached, all that has to be sacrificed. No, this is not that. I want only that. I want only that. Unless you are able to dare, nothing can be really gained by you. to attain the immense adventure that climb and the sacrifice of all we cherish here. Our human knowledge is a candle burned. You see, after all, it is a small wick candle which is burning, a clay lamp which is trying to give us light, whereas it should be a spiritual sun which should be blazing here around. Instead of a spiritual sun, what we have got is only a candle, a wick lamp, you see, burning with oil. You put some oil and then it keeps on burning. Well, still that has a power. It dispels darkness to some extent. It gives you light. It's not so bad. It has the possibility. But what is required is the spiritual sun which must blaze here on a dim altar of a sunvast truth. So the the altar of sunvast truth, and on that altar what is burning is a small candle, a small wick lamp. Instead of the sun blaze, we have got only man's virtue, a coarse spun, ill-fitting dress. So that is our ignominy. So he is really becoming a little sarcastic. After all, what are you? Yours is only a small candle. After all, what are you? It's a coarse spun, ill-fitting dress. You are only a coarse spun. Apparels, wooden images of good. You have made only wooden images of good, you see. That is kind of a sarcasm. See, we have got apparels, wooden images of good, passionate and blinded, bleeding, stained with mire. This is what you are. Bleeding, stained with mire. His energy, his of man, of human, his energy slumbles towards deathless foes, stumbles towards deathless foes. In spite of that, because that little sacrifice, because that little candle is burning, it is burning towards the deathless foe. Shakti, she is going to carry you up, and that Shakti is being carried by the sacrifice which is being kindled by this flame. And imperfection docks our highest strength. So again, it's a commentary. So we are little small creatures. Everywhere, whatever you do, there is imperfection, there is incompleteness, there are blemishes in all our achievement. You think it's a very beautiful building, but it is a building with full of flaws. You don't know about those flaws. You never understand. Imperfection docks our highest strength. Potions and pale reflections are our share. So that is the description of humankind. The whole these two sentences really put you down, that you are a small creature after all. That is our ignominy. Happy the world that had not felt our fall. Those worlds which are there up, they are happy because they are not felt. Now, whether it is good or not, we can't say that. Perhaps it is good that we have fallen. And they are not fallen. Because they are not fallen, it means that they are stuck to their own kind. They are stuck to their own kind. They are typal, they are fixed in their nature, in their character, in their achievements, in their accomplishments. They are fixed. They cannot grow beyond what they are. Whereas for us, there is a possibility to grow beyond and climb up. Means we are evolutionary beings, whereas these people are typal beings, fixed in their nature. So that way I will say, although ours is a pitiful life and all that thing, there is something very glorious about it, that we can really grow continuously. Where will is one with truth and good and power, impoverished not by earth mind's indigence, poverty, extreme poverty, that is the indigence. Impoverished not by earth mind's poverty. That is what the earth mind is after all, you see. The physical mind is after all like that. Whereas those people have got an illumined mind, different kind of impoverished not by earth mind's indigence. They keep God's natural breath of mighty name. So they breathe the mightiness of God Himself. Those Angirasas, those Ranas who are going up, they are keeping that thing. See. He is bare, spontaneous, swift intensity. He is of God. His bare, spontaneous, swift intensity. There is a great transparent mirror. How do you know that thing? Because there is a mirror for you to see and understand. What is that mirror? Self, Atman. Your being, Atman. That is the being. That is the mirror. And if you look into that mirror, then you know all these things. His bare, spontaneous, swift intensity. There is a great transparent mirror, self, and there is sovereign autarky of the sovereign autarky. Nothing can spoil that bliss, can damage, cause harm to that bliss. Autarky of the monarch fully of sin, in which immortal nature have their part, yes, and co-sharers of divinity, yes, they possess that divinity completely and they are the part of that thing, yes, and co-sharers. So these are the runners going up and up and up like that. These are the runners between day and dusk. So this is the description of the deathless flame. So you have got the deathless rose, you have got the deathless flame climbing up. So you have described both the sets of kingdoms on either side of the staircase climbing up like that, all the way up to the beyond coming. So now this is the paragraph break. After describing these two, now he's kind of summarizing the whole thing. He, Ashwapati, through the ideal kingdoms, moved at will. So he is the master. All the Angirisas are there now for him to guide, to take him wherever he wants. So he is the friend of Angirisas now, and Angirisas are going to take him wherever they want to see him. He is the companion. The flame is there, deathless flame is there, deathless rose is there, and all the rishis, the Sapta Vipra, they are there to take him forward. He, through the ideal kingdom, moved at will, whatever wants it. So he is kind of free to. So what a kind of mastery of the mental planes he has. All the mental planes are entirely at his command. Now, when would he have achieved this mastery? I will say that this was already there at the beginning of the Arya period. At the beginning of the Arya period, he has already climbed up this thing. Ashwapati, who is taking us, who has started writing Arya, 1915, he already had that mastery completely, you see. He, through the ideal kingdom, moved at will, accepted their beauty and the greatness bore. Beauty and greatness. Beauty, deathless rose. Greatness, deathless flame. Their beauty and their greatness, all the deathless rose and all the deathless flame. Their beauty, rose stands for beauty, greatness stands for flame. Partook of the glories of the wonder field. All these hierarchies of kingdom, 7 lookers, as we say, but passed not, stayed beneath the splendorous rule. Yes, he has accepted, but no, this is not all for me. This is not all for me. Because he has a certain purpose in mind. He has a certain purpose in his quest, certain intention behind his pursuit and his sadhana and his tapasya. Can these beings, these glorious mental powers of the spiritual kind, help him solve the issue of this creation? The issue of this, yes, all these Saptavipras are there, Angirisas are there, they are helping us, they are promoting us, everything. But can they really sort out the problem of this creation here? That is the basic thing. Therefore, he passed, now stayed beneath the splendorous rule. Yes, the splendid rule, all right. Now, in the revised edition, but paused not past, but paused, now stayed beneath the splendorous rule. I don't know, I can't say. I would say past is a very good word, it's a perfect word. But past, now stayed, obviously he will pass through, he will not stay there at all because he has got something else in mind, something else in his quest. His soul is telling you, all right, you have seen all this glory, but this is not for what you are here. They are your part, you are already one of them. What else you want? What is there going to get? His pursuit is all that I am looking for is something by which the problem, the issue of this creation can be sorted out. There is death here. Can these powers handle the death? If they cannot handle, sorry, I have to proceed further till I see that power by which it can be done. You see. So he is applying a perfect scientific test in all his achievement. You have achieved glorious thing, but is that glory good enough? That question you never ask. You have achieved something wonderful. Is that wonderful enough? That question you never ask. How? What is the test that it is wonderful enough for you? It is glorious enough. It is great enough. Good should not come in the way of becoming great. Your good should never come in the way of becoming great. So there has to be kind of a test for that. And the test is the physical test here. There is mortality here. There is a death here. Can that be tackled? Until then. So he is absolutely scientific in his approach and principle. Yes, I accept all this beauty, wonder, joy, etc., but I am sorry, this is not enough for me. I have to proceed further. But past, now stayed beneath the splendorous rule, all there was an intense partial light. It is still a partial light. It is in the overmind, below the overmind world. It is a partial light. It is a partial light. The full light will come when it enters to supermind. The full light will come. Full knowledge will come when it enters. All there, Truckee, wasn't spirit, intense I am, but partial light I am. All there. What a powerful Truckee this one is. You see, he says, all there was an intense but partial light. What a powerful line. Now that powerful line can become something extremely weak if you say, there all was an intense but partial light. You see, if you read, there all was, the charm is gone, the poetry is gone, the power is gone completely. It has to be all there, not there all. That is the art of a great poet. That is Savitri's art. It has to be all there, Truckee, and not I am. All there, not there all, you see. In each is seraph-winged, high-browed idea. Seraph-winged, seraph, the highest grade of the angels in the Christian theology, who is closest to the Lord, to the divine, seraph-winged. In each is seraph-winged, high-browed idea. So his brow is really wide, his knowledge is vast, high-browed knowledge is vast. About idea, again he talks of idea and ideal, perfection. Ideal means perfection, completeness. Idea is the element by which a certain kind of form is appearing. Idea, see. You got the idea of a chair up there, and then it can become a throne, it can become this chair, it can be an easy chair, it can be a chair for a pet. It can be any kind of. So the idea of a chair is something more important. That is the throne, the supreme throne. And then that can multiply, appear in this manifestation as different forms. Idea, it becomes ideas then you see. In each, a seraph-winged, high-browed idea, united all knowledge by one master thought, pursued all action to one golden sense. All power subjected to a single power of that idea, and made a world where it could reign alone. Each idea has now become so powerful that it can reign by itself. I can be only Shiva, I can be only Vishnu, I can be only Durga. See, that is an idea, that is a fold. So you have become kind of exclusive. You can be capitalism, you can have democracy, you can have the life breath. So these are the powers now. Each becomes now a full power for existence and expression, and made a world where it could reign alone. So when you are following a certain theory, you are entirely governed by theory. Democracy, democracy, democracy. You are excluding all the other possibilities of freedom of speech. You are completely governed by that idea, and you have made a kind of fetish of that idea without taking into account that there can be other ways of expressing things also, you see. All powers subjected to a single power, and made a world where it could reign alone. That is the only way that Shiva, my world is the world of Shiva, my world is the world of Vishnu, my world is the world of Durga, my world is the world of that God, this God, etc., etc., like that, of Christ, of Muhammad, or what you want to call him, you see. You have made him exclusive now. That is the idea. So that is the power of the idea. The overmind gives you complete power to a single idea, because it has to exist by itself in the multiplicity. That is how it has to express itself. An absolute idea's perfect home, insignia, that is symbol of. So you put an insignia that you belong to a certain club, certain group, certain activity. Insignia are their victory and their faith. What is my victory? That I am a worshipper of Durga, I am a worshipper of Chandi, I am a worshipper of Maria. See, that is the insignia. And their fame they offer to the traveller at their gate. They, each seraph winged, high-browed idea, each seraphs, they offered to the traveller at their gate. So actually, they are the Angirasas. In the Vedic description, these are the Angirasas. In the theological description of Christianity, they are the seraphs who are carrying this name. They offered to the traveller. So Ashwapati is the traveller of the world, and they are giving to the traveller of the world a quenchless flame or an unfading power. A quenchless flame, that is the deathless flame. Unfading flower, that is the deathless rose. So these high angels, these Angirasas, they are offering to this pilgrim, this traveller, this Ashwapati, a deathless flame or a deathless rose. Emblem of a high kingdom's privilege. Yes, here, this is a passport, you carry it and go up there. High kingdom, see. A glorious shining angel of the way. A glorious shining angel of the way. Who is the shining angel of the way? Shining angel of the way. Well, in the context of the description here, it is Seraph himself. He is the one who is the leading. Who is the leader here, you see. In the Vedic description, he is the Angirasa Rishi who is carrying you forward, you see. Glorious angel of the way, leader, pilgrim, who takes human to the divine. He is the glorious angel, taking shining glorious angel, you see, who is closest to God. It is he who keeps on singing, Holy, 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 O thou Lord, thy glory. That is the kind of a chant he continues to make. Holy, 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 thy greatness, O Lord, O supreme, O majesty. That is what he calls him. A glorious shining angel to the way. He protects you, he guides you, he shows you the path. This angel presented to the seeking of the soul, the sweetness and the might of an idea. The sweetness and the might. Sweetness, the deathless rose. Might, the deathless flame. See again, you see, the poet is consistent with this description. A sweetness and a might of an idea, each deemed a truth intimate, found and summit full, the heart of the meaning of the universe, perfection's key, passport to paradise. So once you have got this kind of thing, then you get a gate pass and you can go to paradise. You got the gate pass now, you can enter into paradise, you see. Perfection scheme, that is the kind of a mental perfection. The ideal perfection comes. Ideal means perfection. What is excellent, what is desirable, that is the ideal. And you achieve that kind of an ideal by this flame, by this power system. Perfection scheme, passport to paradise. Yet were there regions where these absolutes met, where these absolutes met. These are the deathless flame and are the deathless rose. You are climbing up on either side of the staircase, up there, and somewhere up there they are going to meet the deathless flame and the deathless rose. They are going to meet up there like that. Yet were there regions where these absolutes met and made a circle of bliss with married hand. So they have joined together now. They have come together. The deathless rose and deathless flame have come together, combined together, got married now. It is because of that they can do now greater things together. They can. Until now it was either only the deathless rose or the deathless flame. Now they have come up there together and joined together. Now they can do in that marriage, in the coming together, they can do still greater things. And made a circle of bliss with married hand. Light stood embraced by light. What is that they are going to? By coming together, what is happening? Light stood embraced by light. There is no question of partial light at all. Light embraced by light. Fire wedded fire. That is what is going to happen now. That is married, wedded fire, fire to wedded. But none in the other would his body lose. Still they are married, they are not divorced, but they are not still one. They are not still one, see. They are not still one. But none in other would his body lose. Because each one wants to keep his identity, his uniqueness, his personality, his individuality. That is the entire basis of this creation. That is the entire basis. Unless you retain your identity, your intactness, how can there be multiplicity? You have to be yourself. See, you see thousands and thousands of people, everybody, even in our class, we have got so many people. Each one is a mortal belonging to human race. But each one has his own individual physical character, physical personality, physical features and like that thing. No two persons are identical anywhere at all. Each one has his own thumb mark. Each one has his own thumb mark. Each one has. All of them have thumbs, but each thumb is different. That individuality has to be maintained, is required, is desirable. It is the very purpose of becoming many. Therefore, they remain apart. Light stood embraced by light, fire wedded fire. Okay, because the sacrifice is gone, the wedding has taken place, but none in the other would his body lose. To find his soul in the world, single soul. In fact, he is now preparing for you the next canto, the fourth canto, the world soul. World single soul. It is there. He is preparing already for the 14th canto, you see. To find his soul in the world single soul. A multiplied rapture. See, he uses the word very carefully again. Multiplied, multiplicity, manifestation, to be many, Bhaushyam, to be many. Rapture of infinity. It is not one, it has to be multiple. Each one has to have his own individuality. Onward, he passed, Ashwapati, he passed to a diviner sphere. So from this haven of the ideal, now he is stepping into another domain, the self of mind. In the next canto, the self of mind. Onward he passed to a diviner sphere. There joined a common greatness, light. It is up there in the diviner sphere that there is a joining of light and bliss. Light, the deathless flame, and the deathless rose, they are going to join up there in the diviner sphere, not here. They are married here, but then they are going to be joined up there only, you see. Onward he passed to a diviner sphere. There joined the common greatness, light and bliss, all high and beautiful, desirable power, high and beautiful, again, light and bliss, high and beautiful, rose and flame, forgetting the difference and the separate reign, become a single multitudinous whole, where in that single world soul, to find his soul in the world's single soul, it is in that single soul all the things will be there. Above the parting with the roads of time. So now you are really going beyond the roads of time. Above the silence and the thousandfold world. And a beautiful inviolate truth. Immutable, inviolate, which cannot be spoiled at all. Inviolate up there. And the immutable, inviolate truth. Forever united and inseparable. See, in the ideal heaven, they are together, but yet they are not one. But now here, in the immutable and immediate truth, forever united and inseparable, the radiant children of eternity dwell. So the marriage has produced a generation now. New progeny has come up, the marriage has come. Radiant children of eternity dwell on the wide spirit height, where all are one. That is in the upper region, you see. So that